talk about some of these terms. Okay, so this is chapter 2, and it's communication, perception, and the self. If you're interested in more of this stuff, take 181. We talk about this quite a bit. There's a chapter for like each of these. But for our intents and purposes, we're going to talk about self, how we talk to ourselves, intrapersonal. So let's take a look here. Oops, let me go back. Perception, again, if you look here very quickly, there's no bolded term. So read about this, right? But I try to put some cartoons in there for you. I don't know if you can see that there. Hang on a second. Okay, there we go. That's better. So when you think of perception, you will study this in psychology, maybe your sociology class as well. But in terms of communication, think about how we communicate based on how we perceive things, even how we perceive ourselves in particular, right? So if you look here, there's kind of some funny cartoons I found on the internet there. But look how they all see the elephant. It's very different depending on where you're standing from. That's your standpoint, right? And also, you look here in the water, there's me down there. I'm like 5'4", and there's my buddy up there. But it's all depends where you're standing. So these are in the book again, but for primary dimensions, there are things you can't change. Like I'm 5'4", I'm half Chinese, I'm half Japanese. I can't change those things, right? Those are primary dimensions of my identity. How does it affect me? Well, if I wanted to be, when Top Gun came out, 80s, I wanted to be Maverick, right? He's pretty short too. But I was looking into Air Force Academy, and you had to be, I think, at least 5'10" back then to fly a fighter plane in the U.S. I don't know what they do in Japan though. So that dream was quickly over, right? So my primary dimension affected my identity. I didn't become the next to Maverick in Top Gun. Okay. Secondary dimensions, those are things that can change. Like I'm a teacher. I could have been a construction worker before. I could be a union member. I could be a musician. I could be a twin finner. None of those thrusters kids. But all of those things affect my identity, right? Who I think I am, who people think I am. And when I walk around out there, those can change. I can dress differently and so on. Standpoint, very quickly, where you stand in society, just like where you stand in relation to that elephant you're looking at, right, or the water, that absolutely affects how you perceive messages and how you create messages. So you take a certain topic like homelessness or TMT or Waikiki. If you're a tourist coming here, you might be like, oh, Waikiki's great. But if you surf a lot, you're like, man, Waikiki's great when there's no one there. So our perception is very, very different depending on who we are. Okay, here's a few terms. You'll see 4 bolded terms here actually. So perceiving ourselves. This is very important. Look at the mirror there. This is from the internet as well. But the cat looks in the mirror. That's like my kitty right here. And sees a lion looking back, right? If you see that, great. We all see something. We all see ourselves somehow. And how do we communicate that? So your self-concept is really who you think you are, right? Again, back to my example. Am I a teacher? Am I a father? Am I a surfer? What are you, right? And ethnicity, gender, all these things are going to matter. You can talk about this in your flip grid. How does family matter? That's your first influencer, right? Someone wanted to write about their DOSB. That'd be great. Were you you're the birth order? Were you the youngest, the oldest, the middle child? What did your family? What did they tell you when you were young? How did those labels affect you? Right? Culture, the same thing. Your ethnicity, even subcultures, right? Places within Hawaii are very different. Someone's writing about how Molokai is so different from Oahu, and the perceptions of people from Oahu is we're greedy, we take fish. I never knew that. But how do you see yourself if you're from a different island, even, right? Or Kaneohe versus Makiki, for example, right? Seattle versus New York. Self-concept communication. Here's 2 very important terms. One is symbolic interactionism. This is a really fascinating one. This is back to the semantic triangle. But basically the theory is we communicate in symbols. So as you're listening to me, you're decoding all of these symbols I'm encoding, which happens to be the English language and how fast I talk, right? But go beyond that. What symbols do we use that we apply to ourselves? These are just symbols. They're arbitrary words. Like, for example, someone was talking about hieroglyphics. There's some Hawaiian hieroglyphics there. Were they interacting? Were they trying to communicate? Yes, they were. I'm not going to try to decode that. Someone who might know could try for us. But that's interacting. So, for example, as you go on from hieroglyphics to just the word teacher, maybe that's a symbol that I've been attached to me, right? So part of that affects, or if I'm smart, well, how do I know? I did well in the SAT. I was good at math. I'm short. How do I know? So we go from hieroglyphics and symbols to words and ideas and how you associate yourself to that, right? It's fascinating, really. Think of the symbols that you attach your life to, right? It could be any kind of label. Self-fulfilling prophecy. This is fascinating as well. You know what a prophecy is? Something's going to happen. Self-fulfilling prophecy is when I get to the elevator in my building and I'm like, it's on lobby, And I go, oh, it's going to move as soon as I go push the button. That thing, and what happens when I push it? The thing moves. Oh, man, right? Or maybe it's the opposite. When you come home, you're expecting something from your online shopping. Oh, it's going to be there, and there it is in the mail. This can go much further and deeper than this, too. It could be for school, right? I'm not going to do well in this class. Or, this class is great. It's a piece of cake. It's fun. I'm going to learn a lot. Those things can manifest themselves for real, okay? So be careful what you wish for. But yeah, it's very, very, very powerful idea here. Okay, a few more terms. Again, chapter 1 was pretty easy. We all kind of knew about communication, what they're talking about. But chapter 2 here, a little bit longer, because this one's really, really important. Okay, so 2 terms here, but in general, we're talking about how we perceive ourselves. So look in the mirror. Like I put some pictures there from the internet again. But what do you think you're good at? What are you bad at? Strengths and weaknesses. So how do you assess that? How do you know? So one idea is reflected appraisal. So if you think about like a house, how do you know houses in Hawaii are $1 million? Well, there's an appraiser that goes in and says your house is $1 million, right? Your parking lot here is worth $5, for example. We do that with people as well, right? How do you know if you're funny? How do you know if you're smart? And then how do you reflect that back? So I pulled up those carnival mirrors there because it's kind of funny. Those are just ads for mirrors. They're not actual part of the class, right? And you look at how there are gender issues going on there too, right? But look at how we kind of want to show people. If they think I'm smart, I'm going to be smart. If they think I'm shy, I'm going to be shy. If I was told, I reflect that back. Social comparison. Well, how do I know I'm shy? People tell me that when I look around the world. Okay, I'm kind of shy. I always sit by the corner ready to dig out, right? Of course, you're in Jeff's Zoom class, no problem. Or online class is not a problem. But look at that. Look at all the stuff you compared, the Google, Facebook, all of these things over here. Even as I post my videos, I only got 30 people watching it. Wow, the ones my wife's watching has 1 million. Oh, I'm not. We just naturally do that. Social comparison. Look around. Vogue, Forbes. How do you know if you're wealthy? How do you know if you're attractive? How do you know if you're good at something? We're comparing ourselves all the time, for better or worse, right? There's no judgment here. Okay, we got one kind of important term here. Perceiving others, you can read about in the chapter. It's really interesting. So the way we talk to ourselves affects the way we see others, right? If I think I'm short, I look around the next 5'4" guy, go, he's short too, right? So we talk about this. One thing that's very important here is perception checking. So I put the example here of traffic, like our first impression. Think about when you go out and you're driving today or tomorrow or yesterday, and someone's tailgating you. You don't know the person, but think of the first impression they leave, right? It's the halo effect, with the negative. Oh, this bad person, and you get angry, you react. But this is one of the terms you can think about and write about for the book. Try this. Try perception checks. So number 1, describe the behavior. What's the person doing? Are they giving you the finger? Are they just driving too close? Are they on their phone? Think about, describe what's going on. Number 2, think of at least 2 interpretations. So one could be what we naturally are going to think, right? Oh, the person's rude. They're in a rush. They don't love me. They don't care about me. Whatever it is, they're taking up my space, my freedom on the road. But the usual, right? But think of another interpretation. This is cognitive complexity from chapter 1, right? Be really clear about this. Use your cognitive complexity and think of one more interpretation for that guy behind you tailgating you. So I kind of filled in the story here. I think, you know what? Maybe he had a hard hat on or she had a hard hat on. There's another one, perception, right? And they're in a rush to get to work. And if they don't get there, they're going to lose their job. That, to me, okay, at least I check my perception and I feel, whether it's true or not, I might feel a little better. Seeking clarification in this situation, not very personal, no need. But if it's someone you love and care about, you could actually say, hey, you know what? This is what I think is going on. And we can talk about that later, okay? Stereotypes, you know what those are. Okay, almost done here. Again, longer video, some of these chapters. So perceiving others, this is another thing you want to think about. How does it affect the way you communicate with yourself? Well, it depends who you're around. Will affect the way you talk, right? So managing your impression, so identity management. Sorry, my cat's going to get here on the screen there. I got my cat here. Identity management. We all do this naturally. Some to a lesser degree, some to more of this, right? Where some of us are very low self-monitors, some are high self-monitors. We had an interesting conversation about this. Some people say, well, I just want to be me all the time. You can. It can be very difficult, though. Say you're in a great mood and you're at a funeral, or the opposite of a wedding, right? We tend to kind of use face work. So that's really what we're talking about here. Think about this, the biggest thing, how different are you in school versus work versus home? And the last one I have here is the zombie apocalypse. We'll talk about that in your blind window later. But what would your face be like in the zombie? I think I would try to be cool, but I'm looking down there. I'm probably the guy in the yellow hat, just spacing out, not knowing what to do with my hands. But that's face work, right? These are all actors, of course. But what image do you project to the world under certain situations, right? Whether it's going out to a party or bar or a friend's house at night, or it's interviewing for a job. It's very